right, it is the 10th of May, a beautiful Wednesday morning. Welcome and thank you for joining Kusile Breakfast Show nalomhla ekuseni. Siyakusela ngwane lo muhle nawe ke Thombeni, ngawe ngwane lo muhle phela. Siyakusela uvuka kanjani namhla?
Asivuka kahle mnguni namhla ekuseni. Ingabe wena uvuka kanjani?
Angivuke kahle Manchester City cishe yabulala iMadrid itolo ngidlele kahle kakhulu.
Hayi mafenza bhola.
Yeah, no. Ubani longayilandzeli i-semi-final ye-UEFA Champions League. But anyway, Lulu, namhla sikhuluma itemidlalo, sikhuluma tetempilo sibaphathelene.
Yeah, all right. Good morning and welcome to Tamasinduva Kahle Mhla Ekuseni. Today on the show, we'll be discussing female health issues with Nomathemba Giniza, who is a sexual reproductive health officer in the Ministry of Health. Nekusho kwenhlangano yakamhlaba yetempilo i-World Health Organization, the top 10 female health issues yafaka ekhathi i-cancer, sifo samdlavuza, HIV, reproductive health, STIs, maternal health, violence against women, mental health, non-communicable diseases, being young and getting older. Kwangaleso-ke sizathu-ke inhlangano i-WHO isebenza ngekuthi ikhandla njalo ngeminyaka kuqinisa ama-health systems emave emhlaba ngekuwasekela ngetimali nakungowaniketa nje tisebenti tempilo letibochwephesha. Kanti-ke kungeta kuloko inhlangano i-UN kanye nalabo lesebenzisana nayo batibophelela ngeminyaka wa-1995 in the 1995 Beijing Declaration and Platform of Action with a view to renewing the global effort to remove inequalities that puts decent health services beyond so many women's reach. Kanti-ke hulumende nalapha ekhaya Eswatini kuningi lasakwendile nje kugcinisa yona i-health system lapha eveni kubekisa nje ngayo indzaba ye-HPV vaccine letawucala kurolla out ngenyanga yaJune kulomnyaka losedulu. Kanye-ke nalokunye nje lakwendile sida besikhulumisana naye Nomathemba losuka khona itiko lamhla ekuseni nga 7:30.
Yeah, kanti-ke kulolo nyawo nje lokukhulumisa tona tindzaba leti affecta abantu besifazane kutetempilo. We will talk about sitakhulumisana-ke rather nebaka Eswatini Epilepsy Organization labataw celebrate i-Mother's Day on Friday the 12th of May through a Women's Night under the theme Women and Wellness. The Oxford Dictionary defines epilepsy as a neurological disorder marked by sudden recurrent episodes of sensory disturbance, loss of consciousness or convulsions associated with abnormal electrical activity in the brain. Now, according to a study conducted by the World Health Organization, epilepsy accounts for a significant proportion of the world's disease burden, affecting around 50 million people worldwide, and close to 80% of people with epilepsy live in low and middle income countries. The study pins as an estimated 25% of epilepsy cases are potentially preventable, but that calls for the prioritization of epilepsy as well as projects being carried out to reduce the treatment gap and morbidity of people with epilepsy, to train and educate health professionals, to dispel stigma, to identify potential prevention strategies, and to develop models integrating epilepsy care and information. I think the conference that baka Eswatini Epilepsy Organization is one of those interventions akutheni kufuna ukuthi lwati lube sebantwini ngathi epilepsy ngoba njengoba ivetile i-World Health Organization ukuthi kunestigma lesikhulu. Kanti-ke iphindze ivete nje i-World Health Organization ukuthi women over 1 million, especially laba childbearing babanayo le disorder ye-epilepsy. Siyafuna-ke kuvana abafika baka Eswatini Epilepsy lomhla ekuseni nga 6:30 kuthi through le Women and Wellness Conference yabo laba plane kuyenda ngalesihlanu batawukhulumisa tindzaba tini. Siyeva ukuthi kutabe kunema-renowned speakers lafaka ekhathi male champion speaker Honorable Markford Sbanze, kanti nje bakhona nalabanye labafaka ekhathi Michelle Sandam, who is also a great speaker etindzabeni there's psychology as well as women. So that could be Sagabanti after 6.
Yes, kunjalo mbukeli, it's 4 minutes after 6. Let's quickly take a break. Nasibuya sathathu indaba yethu futhi Eswatini.
Why why should we pay our TV license?
The content on our local television is actually more up to date. The industry is enhanced.
It is a criminal offense not to pay your TV license and attracts a fine of 500 emalangeni or 6 months imprisonment.
And the industry is definitely blooming, ladies and gentlemen. So that's what we have for you. But we'll be right back just after the break, and we'll give you more of Mr. V.
Pay my TV license. That's why I can enjoy the benefits of an enhanced industry and keep track with recent transformation.
Mommy, who paid for a TV license and what are they paying for?
The owners of TV set and gadget with a tuner like DVD set have to pay.
Pay your TV license at NetBank with the details provided on screen. Or use your cell phone via the mobile money pay. You could also visit your nearest post office and pay there. Pay your TV license via Eswatini Mobile Imali. Any TV device retailer can purchase a license to trade. Pay your TV license and enhance the industry.
Welcome back. Sitawubuka tindzaba tethu tesiswati namhla ekuseni. Silwengo semswati wesithathu sesibusise ukuthi inkonzo yelwenyuko yalonyaka ibanjwe ngalesine mhla til-18 enyangeni leSetulu esigodlweni eMbangweni. Lokhu kuvakale ngamengameli wenhlangano yetenkolo i-League of Churches uMbishop Samson Hlatshwako ngekuthunywa yingwenyama esigodlweni litsitsini.
Nasi isimemetho esibalulekile bekunene lesiphuma la esigodlweni litsitsini. Kwatiswe emakholwa onke la kaNgwane nangaphandle kwaleli nesive sonke kuthi seyinkonzo ye-Ascension Day. Inkonzo lesibita ukuthi lwenyuko. Le nkonzo imhla til-18 kuMeyi noma iNkwekhwethi esigodlweni eMbangweni eshiselweni. Njalo kwemakhosi bekunene abusisa ukuthi Jesu ufa la kalobamba esontweni lesive enkanini bese uvuka estadium kaSomhlolo bese wenyuka esigodlweni eshiselweni eMbangweni. Bafundisi ke bacelwa ukuthi bona befike mhla til-17 kuye Meyi ngesimbi 10 ekuseni batokwakha uhlelo lwalenkonzo. Siyacela ke makholwa ngalomhla ka-18 nga-10 ekuseni babe sebahleli phasi semamele kufika kwemakhosi noma loyo loba sathunywe makhosi. Siyacela sive kuhlonipha, siyayathi ishiselo iyahlonipha bekunene. Nigcine nihloniphe nase kufika emakhosi noma loyo loba thunywe makhosi ningayaluki. Nabani khombe imbutho embube imbutho etekuvukela yonkana nilalele ukuthi lapha khanjwa la nibalalele bekunene. Siyacela ke kuthi bazalwane bona befike entsambama ngalomhla ka-17 ngoba kuyabe sekuba nemvuselelo ngalolo lesithathu umhla ka-17 kuze kuse umhla ka-18 lapho sesiyawungena kule nkonzo lenkulu khona. Sicela ke bazalwane nigcine isikhathi noma sekufika emakhosi ningayaluki noma lothunywe emakhosi azaphume kungikhona nicala uyaluka bekunene. Siyabonga. Bayethe wena waphakathi. Lokhipha simemetelo Bishop Samson Hlatshwako egameni lebukhosi. Siyabonga.
Liphini landvunankulu Thamba Masuku lithi kungmanje kunebantfwana labangetulu kwenkhulungwane labagcinwe etindzaweni letahlukene ngenxa yetimo tsite lofaka ekhatsi kuhlukubetwa ngentelicansi labadzinga kufakwa esiswini pheceleti adoption. Liphini landvunankulu belikhuluma ngesikhatsi etimphunga tidzingidza imigomo yekusebenta kwemtsetfo we-Children's Protection and Welfare Adoption Act.
Ngesikhathi indlu yetimbunga ichubeka nemsebenzi wayo welisuku ngemsombuluko, sihlalo welikomiti lelibuke kusebenta kwelihhovisi leliphindla ndvunankhulu khona etimbungeni, umfanenkosi Mshengu ucelele indlu lehloniphekile ukuthi iphasise umbiko walelikomiti mayelana nemigomo yekusebenta kwemtsetfo losakhankanywa we-Children's Protection and Welfare Adoption womnyaka wa-2022, lapho esekele khona imphunga mkhululi Dlamini.
Babuke la ukhanza khona kwekuthi lo mntwana lona kude longakhanza ukuthi ungamatanisa naye. Bendlula ke baveta lokuthi kutaba nemakomiti ngekuhlukana latathi asebenze leyo ndzaba leyo mengameli. Kwasijabulisa futhi ukuthi akukapheleli nalapho mengameli. Noma la makomiti angasebenda kepha kugcina ekugcineni kuye e-High Court. Kube ngiyo leli hlolako lokuthi vele leli nithi niyamhambisa ungilesimo lokhanza ukuthi niyasteka yini mengameli.
Lo mthetho muhle mengameli ngaloko ukuthi ngalesilungu uyasho ukuthi bo High Court uyasho ukuthi kutawuba nemakomiti lanjani based on law section 58 wale Child Protection Act.
Timbonga tibese tidzingidza lo mbiko tabhekisa nemibuto kuloliphindla ndvunankhulu ngale migomo.
Nanka ke lama regulations senginawo kubhaliwe lapha ukuthi utawufika lapho ungabe sengiya withdraw. Ngidawu withdraw kanjani ngoba mhlambe leli muva lami angiladi vele.
Banala vele ngesiko lakithi ngibamikisa kamamncane, ngibamikisa kamzala, bakhulele kagugu wabo. Kanjalo kanje. Lokuthi nje sekuthiwa ukuthi hayi asale ba-adoptwa. Impela ngatla sengibambe.
Liphindla ndvunankhulu Themba Masuku linikete timphendvulo kuto timbunga.
Every human being needs to belong. Labantu esikhuluma ngabo kwamanje nje bang 1144 lalabala kulama care facilities. Labanengi bakhona ngilabangenalo limuva. Labanye bakhona ngibe incest labangafuneki nje nalena lapha kukhona bangambulala nangakavele lalabentiwa le incest. Labanye ngibe rape labo bantu labo labanye tinhlitiyo tabo leti likhuni.
Timbonga tibese tiyawuphasisa lo mbiko waleli komiti taphasisa nale migomo yekusebenta kwemtsetfo we-Children's and Welfare Adoption. Tindzabente Eswatini TV kubika samkelisiwe khoza ngasikhumbuzo Dlamini eParliament.
Imvuna yelitiko letemafa Neil Rackenberg ithi umtsetfo losakhankanywa we-National Payment Systems Bill udalisita live kuchumana naleminye iminotfo yemhlaba. Imvuna beyikhuluma ngesikhathi timphunga tikhulumisa umbiko welikomiti lelibuke kusebenta kwalelitiko endlini yetimphunga ngalo mtsetfo.
Imphunga umfanenkosi Mshengu lophindza abe ngusihlalo welikomiti lelibuke kusebenta kwelitiko letemafa khona etimphungeni ngemsombuluko ucele timphunga kutsi temukele umbiko waleli komiti mayelana nemtsetfo losakhankanywa lotawubuka kwelusa tindzaba tekubhadala nekubhadalana i-National Payment Systems Bill wemnyaka wa-2022 lapho esekele khona imphunga winile nxumalo.
Njalo kuye kube nendlela lokhanzayo ukuthi lokubhadalana kuye kube malula mengameli noma kwendiwe ukuthi kube malula ngelanga. Indlela esibhadalana ngayo mengameli nendlela bebabhadalana ngayitolo seyigijima kakhulu leya lamhla iyathuthuka futhi yenza nokusebenta ukuthi kube malula. Lokwendeka kwemengameli lo mthetho lokhanzayo ukuthi ugadzele totindzaba. So utange
sekukhona tindlela lesetifast ukuthi sibhadalana kanjani. So ke nato leto tindlela kude emathabela ngoti akhona. Lokwelusa ke timo letinjena kufuna kube ngumthetho.
Timbonga tibese tiyawukhulumisa lo mbiko.
Lokumcoka ukuthi kusabhadalwana awube khona umthetho wokuthi timali tibonakale ukuthi tichamukaphi, timali tibonakale ukuthi futhi tibhadalana ngaloku ngesikhathi nangendlela lefair.
Ekubeni indlu yetimphunga itigucule ibelikomiti lendlu yonke yaphasisa lo mtsetfo indvuna yetemafa ne-Rackenberg ibese ibonga timphunga ngalo mtsetfo.
We agree, this is what we want, why we need it, why we want it. A very, very good way to get full buy-in. By the time we pass it, we know everyone's on the same page. There's no one saying, oh, they were left out of the process. So really appreciate the process that was followed to honourable senators in the way we did this. So it'll definitely help us to take the country forward on all the different payment platforms that we're battling with at the moment without this. So thank you very much to the whole House.
Timbunga tiphasile lo mbiko waleli komiti kanye nemthetho we-National Payment System Bill wemnyaka wa-2022 kanye netichibelo tawo. Etindzabeni ye-Eswatini TV kubika Samkeliswe Khoza kunasikhumbuzo Dlamini eParliament.
Imvuna yamabhizinisi nekuthengiselana manqoba khumalo engenele umhlangano wemnyaka wetekuhlanyela timali lobanjelwe eveni le-United Arab Emirates e-Abu Dhabi. Umhlangano kubheke ukuthi uthathe emalanga lamathathu.
Indvuna yamabhizinisi nekuthengiselana manqoba khumalo seyimelela ive laseSwatini emhlanganweni wemave ol-12 wekubuka tindzaba tekuhlanyela timali i-Annual Investment Meeting noma ke AIM lobanjelwe eveni le-United Arab Emirates e-Abu Dhabi. Ngikusho kwembiko lothunyelwe betindzaba ngiyo indvuna yamabhizinisi lo mhlangano ucale ngemsombuluko ubanjwa ngaphansi kwesicubule lesithi kutfutfuka nekukhula kwemnotfo. Lo mhlangano wona uholwa litiko letekuthengiselana tebuchwepheshe kulela live ngenhloso yokusebenta ngekuphuthuma indzaba yokundlondlobalisa umnotfo. Indvuna kulo mhlangano yesekelwe ngilonxusele live laseSwatini kulela live Sifiso Dlamini kanye nemcondziso wehlongosi lokuthuthukisa bosomabhizinisi labancane kuleli Mluleki Dlamini. Kwengeta kulo mhlangano lochubekaka indvuna yamabhizinisi ibe nemhlangano nemalunga e-Chamber of Commerce yakulela live. Kulo mhlangano indvuna nalamalunga e-Chamber of Commerce bakhulumisa tekuthengiselana emkhatsini walamave lamabili nekwakha simo lesivumela kukhula kwabosomabhizinisi labancane kute nabo bafake esandla ekuthuthukweni kwemnotfo yalamave lamabili. Indvuna kubheke ukuthi iphindze ingenele olunye luphiko lwalomhlangano lolubuka ukukhulumisa tinkinga letibhekene nabo somabhizinisi labancane kanye netisombululo kuleto tinkinga letfaka ekhatsi kusebenziswa kwetebuchwephesha. Etindzabeni ye-Eswatini TV kubika Samkeliswe Khoza kanti ifombi tichamuka etiko letemabhizinisi nekuthengiselana.
Kuthula nekuphepha kubalulekile enthuthukweni yemave nakutemnotfo e-Afrika. Tinhlangothi letehlukene takuleli netelivekati laka-SADC tikhulumise tindzaba tekuphepha netekulwa netiphekula tikhuni. Umhlangano ubanjelwe ehhotela lesibane ezolweni.
Lo mhlangano sikolo awuhlose ukuthi emalunga aka-SADC asebenzisane kulweni netiphekula tikhuni kube nekuthula kulamave. Tinhlangothi letehlukene letitsinzekako endzabeni tekuthula nekuphepha titsingitseka banti tindzaba temnotfo netentuthuko letikhinyabetwa ngito tiphekula tikhuni kulamave. Mabhalane lomkhulu etiko letangaphandle Sizwe Njangase uchaza kabanti ngenjongo yalomhlangano sikolwa.
Sithe sikhulumisana na-SADC sathi hey lo mkhuba lona kwangathi ungete wanza kulesifundza sakithi ngoba sifundza lesatiwa ukuthi manje na sifundza lesinekuthula sifundza futhi lesibambisanako futhi nesifundza nasibuka nje kutemnotfo netekukhula. Ngisona sifundza lobe kuthiwa manje nasiyakhula ngetemnotfo. Manje ke sicabanga ukuthi manje na lo mfundza sikole lo kusita nathi simaSwati ukuthi asiqaphele sikuma communities siqaphele nasemadolobheni siqaphele noma ngabe sisetikolweni. Ngiko nje nalamuhla sithe manje na kulaba labatawuparticipate lapho akufayet inhlangothi tonke.
Colonel Mumbi Mulenga we-SADC Regional Counter-Terrorism Center uthi ngaphandle kokuthula kude intuthuko kungako-ke emave kumele agcine kuthula njalo njalo.
Nothing can proceed in terms of development or even regional integration in the absence of peace. So one of the issues that needs to be addressed in the region and even beyond is the threat of terrorism. And so we thought that it would be helpful if we arranged such workshops at national level where we involve various stakeholders, especially bearing in mind that the issue of terrorism is one that cannot be fought by one agency.
Lo mhlangano ke longenelo netinhlangothi letahlukahlukene utawuphela ngalesihlanu. Kubeka Giyani Msibingi Nasimuva Shongwe sesibane hotel ezulwini.
Umcondzisi wetekulima Nelson Mavuso uthi uyalikhathata leli tiko ukuthi lakuleli lilahlekelwa sivuno lesifikako ku-36% kulesikhathi sekuvuna ummbila lesesicalile. Mavuso uthi lesinye salesivuno silahleka emasimini, lesinye silahleke sisaya etinyangweni bese lesinye silahleka sesigcinwe etinyangweni.
Umcondzisi wetekulima Nelson Mavuso uthi njengaloko eMaswati achubeka nekuvuna ummbila akaqinisekise ukuthi isivuna asilahleki.
Lesiyithanda kakhulu kunaye kusika letinhlanga utibeka incumbi bese uyacatha ngoba lapho ubutha tonke letinhlanga lansimini utibeka embi kwakho lolwendlile esandleni sakho waliphuthatha wabuka sinaso nesibhulutsha lolo hlanga lubuya nganhlanye letlambi kwakho uthisha uthuthe tata itsinza ngaleyo ndlela leya siye sithembe ukuthi utawubutha kahle umbila wakho. Wesibili stocking ngoba bakubita ngesstocking lokusika loluhlanga lapha phasi kusita nencimbi itati lokadani indlela leto litiko lelititsi balimi nabangabuyela abasebenzise tona kungasita kakhulu ukunciphisa lokulahleka kwesivuno bese kuyaletha inyango eniketethu. Inyango litiko lithi inyango must be ifanele ifulelwe.
Lo mcondzisi uchubeka ucela abalimi lesebacedzile kuvuna ukuthi asabeme kufaka tinkomo emahlangeni njengaloku labanye basavuna.
Sicela kuyala balimi abalimanga ngesikhathi lesifana nako bonke. Tilimo tisemasimini balimi basastrugglisha bayatibutsa tingomo setingenile emasimini tiyabulala tiyadla yonke lento lenza.
Mavuso uthi lesinye sesivuno silahleka uma eMaswati ayogaya ummbila etigayweni njengaloko etigayweni ukhanza kunetinhlavu tembila kanye nempuphu phansi. Tindzabeni kubika Fortune Dlangamandla nginavuma inkosi inzinisa sesulwini.
Itiko letisebenti nenhlalakahle latisa abafunzi labafundza emanyuvesi nasemakolisha kuleli ababhadalelwa nguhulumende ukuthi kubhadalwa kwama-allowances abo emnyaka wa 2022-2023 kucale ngenyanga yeNdlovana kulomnyaka kulawo manyuvesi nemakolishi umnyaka wawo locale ngenyanga yeMphala. Emanyuvesi nemakolishi le umnyaka wawo ucale ngenyanga yeNdlovana kulomnyaka ema-allowances abo batawatfola ngeliviki lekucala lenyanga yeNkhwekhweti. Emakolishi umnyaka wawo ucale ngenyanga yamabasa kulomnyaka ema-allowances abo ngikhatsi atobhadalwa kusamelwe ukuthi emanyuvesi yalethe ema-invoices kulo litiko letisebenti nenhlalakahle. Itiko latisa bonke abafunzi ukuthi kulandzela ukuthi icabinet ivume kwengedwa kwemifundzate leyinkhulungwane kuwo onke emakolishi nemanyuvesi ema-allowances alabo leba kulenkhulungwane leyengetiwe asetawusetjentwa. Lamanye emanyuvesi lafana nenyuvesi yaseswatini kutsite kusukela mhla ka-27 April aletha ema-invoices kanti labanye basetawenda njalo. 3,864 abafunzi benyuvesi yaseswatini kulabo labangu-4,330 lababhadalelwa nguhulumende sebawatfolile ema-allowances abo. 31 wawo ajikile angabi imphumelelo ngoba ema-bank accounts abafunzi bewangasebenzi. 52 abafunzi bavete tikhalo tabo letisabuketwa litiko nayo inyuvesi. 383 abafunzi basatobhadalwa kulandzela ukuthi inyuvesi ilethe ema-invoices mhla ka-27 April kanye na-May 3, 2023. Itiko licela abafunzi ukuthi balibeketelele lisalungisa indzaba yenhlalakahle yabo nekubambisana kubafunzi. Libandla lelimelele abafunzi kanye nebatali. Lombiko vela kumabhalane lomkhulu etiko letisebenti nenhlalakahle eMakhosini Mndawe. Sihlalo welibandla le-Labour Advisory Board Mthunzi Shabangu lophindze abe ngukhomishana wetisebenti uthi isifiso saleli bandla lesikhulu kucinisekisa ukuthi lisesehhovisi luhlaka lelibuke ukuthi tisebenti tiphatheke kahle emsebentini yeSwatini Decent Work Country Program lishicilelwa angalokuphelele. Lolu hlaka leli lifaka ekhatsi ukuthi indzaba yemali lencane lekumele iholwe sisebenti i-minimum wage.
Libandla le-Labour Advisory Board lisukunyiswe indvuna yelitiko letisebenti kanye nenhlalakahle yato Phila Buthelezi ngalesithathu evikini eliphelile. Leli bandla libamba umhlangano walo wekucala lapho khona belibuka tindlela tekushicilela iSwatini Decent Work Country Program. Sihlalo waleli bandla lophindza abe ngukhomishana wetisebenti etiko letisebenti kanye nenhlalakahle yato Mthunzi Shabangu uchaza kabanti.
La kulolu hlaka la kule program kunama outputs lamanengi. Sekufuna ke manje phinde futhi sibuye siwa prioritize wona lama outputs lalapha ukuthi lesingafuna kuwabona endeka ku-2023 njengoba sikuye nyalo ngumaphi lesingafuna kuwabona endeka ku-2024 ngumaphi ukuthi sikhone kuhlunga letinhlelo letilapha ku-Decent Work Country Program and then sithi prioritize ukuthi this year sitafuna ku-implementa nati, next year sitafuna ku-implementa nati, kanjalo ngeminyaka wekugcina sitafuna ku-implementa nati. Lela kusishinto la khona ukhanzela ukuthi sibaqashe sinetisebenzi siyakhomplya nalama basic minimum standards.
Lolu hlaka lolubuke ukusebenta kahle kodwa isebenta emisebentini yeSwatini Decent Work Country Program lusuka ngeminyaka wa-2022 kuye eminyakeni wa-2025 kanti leli bandla le-Labour Advisory Board litawuba sehhovisi iminyaka lemithathu kusuka kulo mnyaka losetulu. Tindzabeni kubika Fortune Dlangamandla nginavuma inkosi Nzinisa Sesulwini.
Libandla lelibukelo ukhetfo nemincele lithi sive asibe nesibinzi ukuthi konke lebese kukhuluma nakufundwa ngelukhetfo emimangweni bekungasiko ukuthi ihamula. Libandla lithi konke lokuvetwe sive sikuthethe futhi sesicalile nokusebenza. Lokuvakala ngemxhumanisi waleli bandla nesive mbonisa ibhembe ngemsombuluko enkhanini.
Umxhumanisi wesive nelibandla lelibukela ukhetfo nemincele mbonisa ibhembe uthi sekusele tindzawo letimbalwa ukuthi bagocote kufundzisa ngelukhetfo. Bhembe uthi sebavele bacalile kubuka tikhalo nemibono leyafakwa nguleminye imiphakathi labendlule kiyo mayelana nenqubo noma ke nokuthi lukhetfo lingachubutshwa kanjani.
Lamhlanje lesikhuluma libandla solo lihlangene kutohlunga leto tindzaba leto lesititfolile kuleli viki ukuthi ngutiphi letinye letehlukile lesititfolile phambilini. Lokhu ke kwendela ukuthi nangabe tikhona tindzaba letitsinza ngco lukhetfo tibuke libandla lisalungiselela lento emalungiselelo ekubhalisa njengalokuvile ukuthi mhla ka-10 kulesithathu lesiya kuwo libandla litabe licalisa kubhalisa nangesigaba lapho siyowubuka abantu ukuthi lababhalisile ukuthi bayovotela kuleyo ndzawo isigaba sekuncoma isigaba selukhetfo kungaba ngulukhetfo lokucala nobe lwesibili isigaba sekukhankasa tonke letindzaba telukhetfo sitawubuka lokuthi titsintseka ngakuluphi lihlangothi sitawulungisa lesikhona ukulungisa lefuna ukuthi tingene emthethweni nembala tihambe tiyolungisa leto lihlangothi leto.
Libandla lelukhetfo nemincele selivele lifake ePhalamende ticephu temtsetfo letidzinga kuchibelwa letibuke yona indzaba yelukhetfo. Bhembe uthi lesekuvetwe sive noma sekushiwe nguloko lesekusekhatsi ePhalamende nako kukhona la kutabasita khona basalungisa yona indzaba yokuthi lukhetfo luhambe ngendlela lefunwa ngemaswati. Endzabeni teSwatini TV kubika Themkosi Mavimbela nginathemba Shabangu enkhanini.
Kutemidlalo umqeqeshi welikhethelwe lesive lemidlalo ekubhukusha Welcome Hlabathi uthi imiphumela lemihle lapho bathole khona timendlela letingotulu welishumi natintsatfu letfaka ekhatsi letisihlanu tegolide emidlalweni yeMakhana Games evenile Angola kungumsebenzi labawucala eminyakeni leyendlulile. Hlabathi uthi lelicembu lebelise Angola babuke kuphindze balisite licala emalungiselelo ema-Youth Championships eminyaka wa-2026 letabanjelwa evenile laseSenegal.
Sase siyaqala ke kumedala ke last year eZambia la kusho khona ukuthi lento lebesolo le long term goal lebesinayo inyalo is bearing the fruit. So sicale ngalokho sivele sisho labantwana abacale baye kule competition singa expect lutho but satinika iminyaka letsite ukuthi after leminyaka lengakasebenza sesicala sesithola ama medals. Sikuko futhi nyalo sifuna siqale phansi kune group of kids lesi-identify that we want to bring up as well, but njengoba usho compete bonamibha nje ngibese beyitengisho nemashumas labaningi kakhulu but beyikhona kuto tonke letikhala. So lokho umcoka nyalo ngicabanga sifuna sisebentele kuko as from next year ngilokuvala letikhala lokungena lapho kude khona labe kude khona emashumas la representako. Le squad lesi labantwana labo nje incumbi yabo ngibabukele 2026 Youth Olympics. So let's buke ukuthi by 2026 kufuna sibe sine qualification ye Youth Olympics noma beyinye noma babili but nje i qualification ifuna khona for the Youth Olympics.
Anedota emidlalo sidibeka lapho tindzaba tetfu tesiswati lomhla ekseni sidaba hlolete makethe sibe sikhulumisane nalabasuka ka epilepsy asenchine simosudulu.
what we have learned about this first malaria vaccine is that it works.
The vaccine really has a great impact, and with this vaccine added to other malaria control tools, we expect to have a lot of benefits.
So 3 years later, we've witnessed the community using both the malaria vaccine and also continuing to use other malaria control interventions. Beyond the numbers, that we've had stories from the caregivers and from the healthcare workers on the impact the vaccine has brought into their lives.
Since it was introduced, has been an opportunity to help us to follow clients and also improve the uptake of other vaccines.
I think the malaria vaccine gives the opportunity for them to remember that there are more vaccines that could be taken in that second year of life.
I used to take my children, and I'm now doing the same to my grandchildren. I bring him to get vaccine to prevent malaria. I hope for him to grow up healthily so that one day he can help me as a grandmother.
I came to bring Stella for the third dose of malaria vaccine. It's important to Stella because it protects the child from malaria, and it's equally important to me because if the child is sick, the mother is always unhappy.
Pay your TV license quickly and easily with MTN Momo. Simply dial *007 *3 hash and select option 8 for TV license. Enter your national ID number as your reference and the amount you wish to pay. Then enter your PIN to confirm your payment. Once your payment has been made, you'll receive a confirmation SMS of your payment. If you're a first-time payer, you get another SMS for your TV license. So legalize your entertainment from the comfort of your home. Pay your TV license the easy and convenient way with MTN Momo.
Everywhere you go, MTN.
All right, 35 minutes after 6. Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. As I said, Eswatini Epilepsy Organization celebrates Mother's Day on Friday on the 12th of May through a Women's Night under the theme Women and Wellness. The Oxford Dictionary defines epilepsy as a neurological disorder marked by sudden recurrent episodes of sensory disturbance, loss of consciousness, or convulsions associated with abnormal electrical activity in the brain. Mandisa Lukele is the Events and Communications Coordinator under the Eswatini Epilepsy Organization. So very good morning, Mandisa. Thank you for joining us. Let's talk about this dinner that's happening on Friday. We've always seen you guys, capacitating people in communities about epilepsy. The focus is always, community and the Eswatini nation as a whole demographic, but the specific focus on women this Friday. Talk to me about that. A very good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. Well, firstly, maybe by way of introduction, I could just say, as you said, we are the Eswatini Epilepsy Organization. Our mandate is to serve people, or persons with epilepsy, which is, as you also mentioned, a neurological disorder. So one of our mandates, or rather one of the ways by which we carry out our mandate in serving persons with epilepsy is through the events that we have, because events give us a great opportunity to raise awareness for epilepsy. So we just recently had the Yellow Epilepsy Charity Half Marathon in February, where we the theme was 50 million steps for epilepsy, which the idea is to have the runners maybe run or walk an accumulated number of 50 million steps in the name of spreading or raising awareness for epilepsy. So this time around, with this coming Friday on the 12th from 6:30 p.m. at Happy Valley Hotel, we will be launching the Women and Wellness campaign. It's going to be a media campaign that we're launching. It's going to be a week-long campaign starting this coming Friday on the 12th until next week Friday, which is the 19th, I believe. So the theme, as I said, is women and wellness. I could say in conceptualizing the event, the rationale for the theme and having it be focused on women is because a lot of the time we are a health-based NGO, so we wanted to have an event which caters to health. So you find that a lot of the time it is women who are what I could call first-line responders in the familial setting, in the societal setting. I think we all understand that generally across societies in the world, it is women that are called upon to be the nurturers, to be the caretakers, to be the caregivers in a familial setting. So because of that, you find that they often carry a lot emotionally and psychologically. And it's not uncommon for women to not prioritize their own mental and emotional and psychological health while they're taking care of everyone else. Women have a reputation for being selfless that way. So we want to encourage particularly women for that reason to prioritize mental health. As the Epilepsy Organization, as the Eswatini Epilepsy Organization, we want to spread the word that prioritizing mental health, prioritizing your psychological health is not only something that should be a concern for persons living with a neurological disorder like epilepsy or autism or the other neurological conditions, but it should be something that we all prioritize. Because I think oftentimes in our country, in Eswatini maybe, we tend to think that when we talk about mental health, we talk about mental instability, intellectual instability. There's a stigma attached to it. So we just want to, I would say this event is our attempt at removing some of that stigma. It's a way of saying, women, please be mindful, please prioritize your mental health, hence the theme, women and wellness.
And just speaking on the stigma that, Eswatini has, with regards to mental health, we woke up to headlines yesterday that three UNESCO students committed suicide.
Yes.
I was having a conversation with one of my friends, and they were telling me that they had a similar incident around their community where someone committed suicide, and they didn't want to attribute that to mental health. They were saying that it was probably witchcraft, a lot of other things. But there's a much deeper, meaning to it, and I'm glad that you guys are, making interventions with regards to that. Let's talk about, the World Health Organization says epilepsy accounts for a significant proportion of the world's disease burden, affecting around 50 million people. That's a lot of people. I know that we may not have the exact numbers in Eswatini with regards to the statistics, but if you could give me, as you continue to work, I'm sure you have people that come to you. What is it looking like in terms of, people that have epilepsy? Just give me an approximation of how bad it is.
Okay, what I can say with epilepsy in the country, It's definitely more common than you might think. So as I work in the offices at Eswatini Epilepsy Organization, it's not uncommon just to have someone come by the office who might not maybe be there to maybe seek services on epilepsy particularly. There could be someone working someone we're working with from the media, someone we're working from one of our corporate partners, and then they just reveal that I have epilepsy. By the way, I am living with this condition. I am on anti-epileptic medication, or I have a son or a daughter, a family member, a relative, a neighbor who has epilepsy. So it's definitely not uncommon, even though our statistics are not as up to par as we would like for them to be. But epilepsy, it's definitely more common and it's more rife than you might think in our country, in our communities, and in our families and just our social circles.
But how resourced are we in terms of, preventing it? World Health Organization says 25% of epilepsy cases in the world are preventable. How resourced are we? How well resourced are we as a country?
Well, the medication, we do have the medication. We do have anti-epileptic medication. We also have a great initiative by where persons can go and get sprained, or it's called an EEG scan in Babane Government Hospital. So we are really trying to push people to take advantage of that service. It's a relatively new service in the country, and the EEG scan is very important because the technician who works that particular machination is able to use it to scan the brain and really track or rather analyze the state of the person with epilepsy's mental condition, their brain state, so that they can then prescribe the correct medication to that individual. And that medication, it's dispensed at local health centers and pharmacies.
Yeah, one thing I appreciate about your organization is that we will definitely see the visibility every year in terms of raising awareness. We do see these marathons, we do see the campaigns, everything that you do in terms of, interventions and responding to epilepsy. Do you see a difference in terms of, the awareness? How do you get a yardstick in terms of, seeing that we do see the difference in terms of people coming to us, in terms of people talking about epilepsy?
Well, it's a bit hard to measure awareness, particularly. I don't know if you can quantitate it in that sense. But we definitely, there is a difference. It's very effective. People will call into the office and mention that I've been seeing a lot about epilepsy. What exactly is epilepsy? Because believe it or not, it's a lot of people who don't yet know what epilepsy is. So by raising awareness, we're hoping to get the word out there and make people aware of what epilepsy is. And with the response that we're receiving from the public, I can say it's definitely making a remarkable.
We do have a lot of people who don't know what epilepsy is, and I don't think I'm doing them justice when I define it using the Oxford Dictionary. But luckily you're here, so let's define it in layman's terms, and probably diagnose a person really who has epilepsy from the seats that we are on right now. How does a person know that I'm probably epileptic, or I have a relative that's probably epileptic, but they don't know that it's epilepsy?
Okay, well, I won't diagnose anyone as I'm not a medical practitioner.
Not diagnose really, but you know what I mean.
Well, as the Oxford Dictionary definition, it's quite plenty. It's sufficient. It's a neurological condition. That means it affects brain health. So one of the symptoms of epilepsy, of course, it's the seizures. But of course, it's important to remember that not every seizure is an epileptic seizure. Sometimes you may experience a seizure. I might experience a seizure without necessarily being epileptic, because seizures are brought on by different stimulus. It could be stress, it could be lack of sleep, it could be a number of those things. But some seizures do happen to be epileptic. So when you do have a seizure, it's important to seek medical attention, to really be diagnosed by healthcare practitioners, medical practitioners, what the root cause of that seizure is.
Yeah, you spoke on the rationale of how you went about, coming up with this dinner. I want you to talk to me about the dinner itself now. Let's talk about the day. It's Friday. What do you have? What's going to happen?
Okay, the dinner is going to be this Friday, as I said, on the 12th from 6:30 at Happy Valley Hotel. We are really hoping it's going to be a dynamic interactive dinner.
Yeah.
When you look at our speakers, our host is Mrs. Tolani Hlachago, who is the Africa coordinator for the 1 Billion Rising campaign,
Okay.
which is a campaign which advocates for women's rights, women's visibility, etc. And Mrs. Tolani Hlachago herself is she's doing a lot in the gender equality, women's rights space in the country, which is ideal for the theme of our event. We also have, we'll have a clinical psychiatric nurse who will speak, because at this event we want to encourage women, we want to make them aware of the importance of prioritizing mental health and also lay the scene of what mental health looks like in the country. As you mentioned earlier, with the suicides that are occurring, the crimes of passion as well, that are, those are all attributable to the state of the people in the country's mental, emotional, and psychological health. So we'll have a psychiatric nurse to talk to the women specifically about psychological or mental health for women as it concerns them specifically. We also have Manzini North MP, Honorable Macford Sibanze, who will be our male champion, because we want to spread the narrative that the issue of women's wellness is not only women's issue. It also it also involves men, or rather men should be engaged when we have these sorts of conversations, because it's not just women alone in society, men are in society as well, and the two genders need to work side by side for there to be a productive society. We also have entertainment. Gospel sensation Otando Dlamini will be our guest artist. We'll have a life coach as well, and a spiritual healer.
Can
it's
anyone
just going
attend?
to be all.
Like, how do people attend? Do they have to buy tickets?
Yes, you definitely have to.
It's just briefly, because we've run out of time.
Yes.
Yeah, how do they have to buy tickets?
You can buy a ticket from Momo Pay, Momo Marketplace.
Okay.
Yes.
That's it.
Or you can call the office, and for more details at 7823-1902.
Awesome. Mandisa, thank you so much for joining us. Lovely having you providing those insights with regards to this dinner. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mandisa from Eswatini Epilepsy Organization, which celebrates Mother's Day on Friday, the 12th of May, through a Women's Night under the theme Women and Wellness. Let's go for a net break. Masibuya siqhubeka nehlelo.
We are seeing rising number of COVID-19 cases in many parts of the world. What does that mean? How is the SARS-CoV-2 virus evolving, and what does it mean when we say that the world must now learn to live with COVID-19? Hello and welcome to Science in 5. I'm Vismita Gupta-Smith. We are talking to Dr. Maria Van Kerkhove today. Welcome, Maria. Let's start with these rising numbers of COVID-19 that we are seeing in some countries. Maria, talk to us about what does that mean?
Hi, Vismita. Thanks for having me back again. There are a number of reasons why we're seeing increasing cases in a number of countries. First is that the virus continues to evolve. Since Omicron first emerged, we've had more than 900 sublineages of Omicron in circulation, and we're tracking each and every one of those, and we'll come to those in a moment. The other reason is that we have a lifting of public health and social measures. So people are living their lives, and they're living their lives as safely as possible because we have increasing vaccination coverage around the world, and we have increasing level of immunity from vaccination and or past infection. But that immunity does wane over time, which means people can be infected. And the combination of variants that emerge that have increased transmissibility, which means they can infect people more easily because there are properties of immune escape, means that people can be reinfected again. So this is something we will have to deal with going forward. Right now, we are seeing an increase in case reporting from a number of countries around the world. For example, one of these countries is India. And one of the reasons why we are seeing an increase in case detection is likely because of the sublineage XBB.1.16. XBB.1.16 does have increased transmissibility, but we have not yet seen a change in severity. Another reason why we're likely seeing an increase in case reporting from India is because one of the last big waves of infection that India experienced was the Delta wave, and that was quite some time ago. While we are seeing an increase in case reporting in a number of countries around the world, we are not really seeing an increase in hospitalizations and deaths. It's not true in all countries. We still see hospitalizations, and at the present time, we estimate that hundreds of thousands of people are in hospital each week due to COVID-19. But because we have access to diagnostics, early clinical care and the use of antivirals, and safe and effective vaccines, people who are infected or reinfected with SARS-CoV-2 are not dying as frequently as they were in the beginning of this pandemic when we didn't have treatments and we didn't have vaccines.
Maria, talk to us about how the SARS-CoV-2 virus is evolving.
The more the SARS-CoV-2 virus circulates, the more opportunities it has to change. This is what viruses do, and this virus continues to evolve in the 4th year of this pandemic. We've had Omicron variant of concern in circulation for more than a year now. We have 2 variants of interest that we are tracking in terms of tracking its transmissibility, its severity, and its impact on our interventions. And we have risk assessments that are published online. This is XBB.1.5 and XBB.1.16. We also have a number of variants under monitoring that we are tracking.
Maria, like you said, this virus is here to stay, and we have to learn to live with SARS-CoV-2 circulating and COVID-19. What does that mean for individuals as well as government?
We need governments to ensure access to rapid diagnostics and making sure that people are tested very quickly so that they get into the clinical care pathway, that governments have access to these antivirals so that people can be treated very quickly so that they don't develop severe disease. We have to work on increasing primary vaccination coverage, particularly in low and middle income countries. And we have to ensure those who are most at risk for severe disease receive the boosters according to need. We also need governments to focus on surveillance to ensure that we are tracking this virus. As individuals, it's really important that you know what your risk is and you take steps to lower your risk as you're living your lives. First and foremost, get vaccinated and get boosted if it is recommended for you. It's not only important if you were vaccinated, but when your last booster was. And take measures to keep you and your loved ones safe. And remember, we're also concerned about post-COVID-19 condition and the potential effects of repeat infections. There's a lot more that we know about this disease 4 years in, but there are still quite some uncertainties.
Thank you, Maria. That was Science in 5 today. Until next time then, stay safe, stay healthy, and stick with science.
53 minutes after 6, it is time now to get an update of what our traffic is looking like. Sitawuthola simo semgwaqo labaqhamuka khona emaphoyiseni. Sivusela mhla ekseni engabe sime kanjani sime emigwaqweni.
Ngikuvusele Ncumalo, ngivusele naye umbukeli wekusile breakfast show. Imigwaqo yelivela kaNgwane singumbuthwane wembubene sive sesihlolile cishe yonkana yelive. Imigwaqo leminengi iyahambeka kulolu suku lanamuhla kufaka ekhathi leyo ledelitiyela kwathi sephela ukuthi itolo imigwaqo leyo ledelitiyela beyishelela kakhulu. Emadolobheni elive nakhona sihlolile idolobha lelikhulu laseMbabane sibane temgwaqo lesemangwaneni na uphuma ubheka khona kamanzini atisebenzi leto-ke sesinemalanga atingasebenzi emalangeni lamahle sifuthatha nje kona kuye ukuthi bashayeli abachubeke bafike beme lapho kuze kuthi wonke umuntu losebenzisa loyo mgwaqo aphephe. Umgwaqo losuka khona edolobheni uye eSport loNgusomhlolo Road lo mgwaqo loyo solo uvaliwe kulandzela kuye ukuthi tisebenzi temgwaqo solo tiyawakha. Lo munye umgwaqo lesiuhlolile umgwaqo losuka khona ehekeni laseNgwenya uye khona kamanzini lokufaka ekhathi naye emalagwane kude lokuthi Kinyabedo khona lapho ngabakhuthatha nje bona labantu awusebenzisa yena amalagwane nabehla noma bakhuphuka kuye ukuthi litubane sekufanele bahambe ngalo lapho litubane lelincane kwathi sephela kuthi umgwaqo uwewukela kakhulu futhi unemahona lacijile lokho ke nangabe umshayeli ahamba ngelitubane lelisetulu ukhanza sekehluleka kuyilawula leyo motolo ukhanze seyiphunyuka esandleni semshayeli sithi nje asibambisane ngakulolo hlangothi sihambe ngelitubane lelifanele kuze kuthi sikhone kuphepha sisawusebenzisa umgwaqo. Tibane temgwaqo edolobheni le kumathapha kamanzini nakhona enhlangano siyasebenza tonke kanye nemigwaqo lengenela kuwo lamadolobha iyahambeka kude lokuthi Kinyabedo nyalo ekseni. Lesingathanza nje kukhuthatha kubo esikuso sive senkosi kungaba nibo bafuyi siyanaka ngetithuba tasekuseni sisahlola wona umgwaqo ukhanza tinkomo letiningi tilele khona eceleni kwemgwaqo lokukhombisa kona ukuthi leyo mphahla isuke ingabuthwa ngayitolo sithi nje bafuyi abente isiqiniseko ukuthi impahla tabo bayatibutha kuze ukuthi tiphephe nabo labasebenzisa timotolo ngetithuba tasebusuku baphephe nabo lokunye-ke siyathi ukuthi ngetithuba tasebusuku kulukhuni kuyibona leyo nkhomo noma-ke leso silwane lesisemgwaqweni lokwenta ukuthi vele ngetithuba tasebusuku tinkhomo tishayiseke kakhulu ngale kwaloko Mnguni naye umbukeli imigwaqo yelive lakangwane iyahambeka ngaphandle nje kwaloko lesenkushido kungaba nje kufisela yena umbukeli usuku loluhle naloluphephile basetawusebenzisa yona imigwaqo yelive lakangwane.
Sibonga kakhulu Mdolo sikhathi sakho sibonge naleyo update losipha yona lomhla ekuseni sinifisela usuku loluhle nanani nisaqhuba imisebenzi yelive sibahlola emakethe masibuya sithatha indzawo lechamuka ngaphandle kwalapha eveni. Of her home last month, South Sudan was the only place she and her 2 young children could reach.
Several days on the road, belongings packed up hastily. It's a story that many of these people have already experienced once before, when they left South Sudan as civil war erupted in 2013, shortly after the country gained independence from Sudan.
If I'd had the choice, home in Sudan because of the instability. But now it's the same situation in Sudan. So what should we do? We don't know. We just don't know.
Conditions at this camp are rough. Food is scarce, children are getting sick, and some don't have anywhere to sleep. Many hope they will be able to settle in a third country. Up until last month, more than 800,000 South Sudanese refugees lived in Sudan. Since fighting erupted in Khartoum, the UN Refugee Agency has registered more than 30,000 people crossing into South Sudan. More than 90% of them are South Sudanese. Actual figures could be much higher, with many people crossing via informal border points.
Pakistan is on edge after paramilitary forces arrested former Prime Minister Imran Khan on corruption charges on Tuesday. Since Khan's ouster last year, the country has been mired in political instability. Some fear the chaos could grow worse as Khan supporters target their anger at the powerful military.
An army commander's residence vandalized, military vehicles pelted with stones, angry protesters in the streets. Tensions are high in Pakistan after paramilitary forces took former Prime Minister Imran Khan into custody on corruption charges on Tuesday. Khan was at the High Court complex in Islamabad to seek a bail extension in a number of cases when Rangers personnel broke into the room where court officials were taking his biometric data. Paramilitary forces hauled Khan away without his wheelchair. The cricket star turned politician is recovering from a leg injury suffered in an assassination attempt last November. Soon after the arrest, demonstrations broke out across major Pakistani cities.
We were not even expecting that they would arrest Khan, such a great leader of Pakistan, such a dearly loved leader. We had not even thought that they would cross that red line. I personally feel that we have to come out in every street, every alley, every town.
Khan accuses Pakistan's powerful army and intelligence agency of being behind his political troubles and threats to his life. Khan's supporters back his allegations, despite denials from the military. In a remarkable show of anger, Khan's supporters in the eastern city of Lahore ransacked the house of the regional military corps commander.
These items are from my tax money. They were in a house that also belongs to us, so I have taken things out of what is my house.
As protesters and police clashed across Pakistan, reports of injuries emerged on both sides. Since his ouster, Khan has faced dozens of cases of alleged corruption, treason and terrorism. He denies the charges. The former Prime Minister was arrested in a corruption case on a warrant issued by the National Accountability Bureau, an autonomous anti-corruption body. Pakistan plunged into political chaos April last year when Khan was ousted in a parliamentary vote of no confidence less than 4 years into a 5-year term. The arrest of the popular political leader has further raised fears that the nuclear-armed country of nearly 230 million people will plunge even further into chaos.
In Serbia, tens of thousands protested, demanding better security, a ban on violent TV content, and the resignation of key ministers, just days after 2 mass shootings killed 17 people. Crowds in numbers not seen in the Balkan country for years solemnly marched through the center of the capital, Belgrade, behind a banner reading "Serbia Against Violence."
A mass demonstration of grief and anger. Thousands of Serbians gathered in front of the parliament in Belgrade, calling for action against violence. At the rally organized by opposition parties, protesters demanded the resignation of key government ministers and the shutdown of TV stations and newspapers they say promote violent content.
I'm here to demonstrate solidarity against the pervasive violence in the media, in Parliament and in daily life, to show my support in the wake of events that have shattered us and to pay tribute to the lives of the children we have lost.
The whole atmosphere in society was created by the system, specifically the president, who is the main instigator of this Serbian tragedy.
The rally comes after Serbia saw 2 mass shootings in 2 days last week. The first at a school in the capital where a 13-year-old boy killed 8 other students and a security guard. A day later, a 20-year-old went on a shooting rampage, killing 8 people at random in 2 villages south of Belgrade. Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić dismissed protests over the violence as a political stunt. He emphasized the steps his government is taking to reduce the number of guns.
The measures are such that we will begin to confiscate illegal firearms. People have 1 month to deliver arms and ammunition without consequences. No one will ask how you got these weapons. Just hand them over. That's all.
Serbia has one of the highest levels of gun ownership in Europe, with about 39 firearms for every 100 people, including military-grade weapons. A gun culture dating back to the wars that tore apart the former Yugoslavia in the 1990s.
As Moscow's troops fight on in Ukraine and after days of sabotage attacks at home, Russians celebrated Tuesday's World War II Victory Day, hoping for a win on the modern battlefield. President Vladimir Putin frequently portrays the campaign in Ukraine as a reiteration of the Soviet fight against Nazi Germany 8 years ago.
An annual commemoration in Moscow's Red Square marking the defeat of Nazi Germany. Tanks and military personnel took part in Tuesday's events, which were scaled back in the capital. Parades in a number of cities across Russia were cancelled due to security concerns. The commemorations in Moscow, taking place 14 months after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, began.
Today, civilization is once again at a decisive turning point. A real war has once again been unleashed against our homeland.
Russian President Vladimir Putin once again used the occasion to justify the war in Ukraine. He accused the West of Russophobia and support for Nazism and terrorism. Around 530 Russian soldiers currently fighting in Ukraine took part in Tuesday's parade. President Putin addressed them directly and said they were fighting for the future of Russia.
The security of the country rests on you today. The future of our statehood and our people depend on you. You're fulfilling your military duty with honor. You're fighting for Russia.
The commemorations in Moscow included leaders from former Soviet republics. Tuesday's Victory Day parade took place amid heightened security and came days after the Kremlin said it foiled an alleged drone attack threatening the life of the president.
Still in Russia, Russian crude oil shipments have hit their highest levels since the beginning of 2022. That's according to a Bloomberg report, despite Western sanctions imposed over Moscow's invasion of Ukraine. Russia has found new buyers outside of Europe, but at a significant hit to its profit. Here's a look.
Russia shipped on average 3.66 million barrels of crude oil per day in the 4 weeks up to May 5th, according to figures compiled by Bloomberg. That's the highest level since the beginning of 2022. Almost all of the oil is being shipped to China and India, with smaller amounts heading to Egypt and Turkey. Before its February 2022 invasion of Ukraine, Russia shipped 1.5 million barrels of oil per day to the European Union. But Western countries have reduced that trade to almost zero. Only Bulgaria is importing Russian crude oil.
The EU imports of crude oil from Russia are completely replaced by Egyptian and Indian imports of crude oil. So Russia has found other buyers, and the EU in turn has looked for other suppliers and has also found it.
Despite finding new buyers, Russia's oil revenues have shrunk by 2/3. Western sanctions and a price cap of $60 per barrel on Russian oil are squeezing profits. The Kremlin said last week that export proceeds fell 67% last month to $6.4 billion.
Russia is suffering. You can look at the data. Yes, they have found new buyers of oil, but at a lower price. Urals is trading at a discount compared to other sorts of oil. The new buyers are not as attractive as the old ones.
The new buyers are also much further away, resulting in average shipping times of 16 to 18 days, up from 4 to 6 days for the pre-war shipments to Russia's European neighbours, according to Reuters.
And of course, that is negative for the cost, so prices in general go up. And it's also bad for the environment if you think about CO2 emissions. And part of the gamble of Vladimir Putin was that the Western countries would not be willing to bear those costs. But now that we see, I think more than a year, that the Western countries are willing to accept some of the cost.
The West is trying to persuade allies like India to import less Russian oil.
But of course, those countries are sovereign countries and they have their own interest. But in a way, you want to make the second best option for Russia even worse. But that will have limited success, as history tells us and as the economic analysis tells us today.
Analysts say some Russian oil is likely still entering European markets. Crude oil is difficult to track as it can be easily blended with other shipments in transit countries or at sea. The complexity of shipping companies and vessel flagging adds to the difficulty of enforcing sanctions.
And in Turkey, there's a wave of mass arrests that's predominantly in the Kurdish region ahead of the May 14th elections. It is triggering concerns among the opposition and human rights observers.
Parliamentary candidate Sorgul Aytek Afshar is campaigning hard for the pro-Kurdish Green Left Party. It's been under siege, accused of links to separatists who've been fighting in the region for decades. Ahead of polls, many of his elected mayors and parliamentary deputies are already in jail.
We are all under the same pressure. Anything can happen at any moment, whether you are an MP or a candidate, whether you are a staff member here, whether you make tea here or bring newspapers here. We are all struggling against the same mentality because we are all under the same pressure.
Last month, the legal crackdown extended to the region's independent media. Mesopotamia news agency is short-staffed after its editor and several journalists were detained under anti-terror legislation.
They are accused of membership in an illegal organization, but they cannot find any concrete evidence to establish any connection to membership in an illegal organization. It is only because of their news reports. In fact, the government is aware that something would change with the Kurdish vote in this election, especially in this last period after the pandemic. Turkey has had a serious economic crisis.
Rights groups have condemned the journalist arrests, which are part of a wider crackdown involving over 200 detentions of people. including lawyers and civil society members. This is raising concerns about election security.
The arrest timing is meaningful because all these people are actively involved in observing the election process. People who will identify and prevent voting violations that might occur during this process or will report on these violations.
The government says the judiciary is independent. Accounting for about a fifth of the population, the Kurdish vote is key to the outcome of May's presidential and parliamentary elections. This is especially so as the pro-Kurdish Green Left Party is now supporting Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu against incumbent President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. With Kılıçdaroğlu vowing to free imprisoned Kurdish politicians and constitutional reform, the elections offers an opportunity for fundamental change.
This is actually a historic election, and it coincides with the country's republic entering its second century. We want it to be a democratic beginning, replacing an old rigid system without respect to human rights, with a constitution that is inclusive, democratic, and for freedoms.
Given the high stakes, campaigning is intensifying with only days left before an election that many see as key to the country's future.
Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's primary challenger in the May 14 elections, Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, is targeting the Kurdish vote in presidential and parliamentary elections. This marks a turnaround for Kılıçdaroğlu's CHP party, which for decades ignored Turkey's predominantly Kurdish region.
CHP parliamentary candidate Sezgin Tanrıkoğlu, meeting with Diyarbakır merchants, speaks of his party's 30 years of electoral failure in the predominantly Kurdish region.
The CHP not only distanced itself from Kurds, but also as a political party that did not say anything about their fundamental problems, using a negative discourse towards them. With our policies, under the leadership of our chairman, we have come to a point where we recognize them, show solidarity with them, and find solutions to their basic problems.
The CHP is the party of the founder of the Turkish Republic, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, who cracked down hard on Kurdish uprisings. The latest conflict between Kurds fighting for minority rights saw the CHP largely silent on human rights abuses and opposing calls for minority rights. But under its leader, Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, now a presidential challenger, that stance changed. He's pledging democratic reforms. Still, analysts say the CHP will struggle to overcome its past.
It is very difficult for CHP to become a political force in the region again. However, it must be acknowledged that CHP has taken important steps in this regard, and Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu has brought about significant changes. We see that there is a tendency towards CHP among young people and voters who will vote for the first time.
Kılıçdaroğlu has secured the backing of the region's main pro-Kurdish party in his presidential bid, with opinion polls giving him a strong lead in the region over incumbent Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Tanrıkoğlu, a Diyarbakır native and as one of the city's most prominent human rights advocates, is drawing support for his parliamentary bid, even among skeptics of his party.
Diyarbakır's vote is obvious. People's opinion is very clear. Even though he is with CHP, he is Diyarbakır's own, and one vote from every household will go to him.
As some observers see it, the CHP has a real chance of winning parliamentary representation from the Kurdish region. For Tanrıkoğlu, it has been a long journey.
Since 2010, I received so much criticism from my circle and friends. Many of my friends reproached me as to why I joined this party. Now almost all of them have come to the point of voting for Kılıçdaroğlu, and I would like to think I played a role in this.
Analysts say winning parliament seats in Diyarbakır and other cities in the predominantly Kurdish region would break the grip of Erdogan's AKP and pro-Kurdish Green Left Party, and thus change Turkey's political landscape.
The United States is girding for the arrival of thousands of migrants this week, with the expiry of pandemic-era rules that have made claiming asylum at the border all but impossible. The country's deep divisions over immigration are expected to be laid bare as a wave of people try to get a foothold in a place founded on the promise of safety and shelter, but where a rising tide of nationalism makes the welcome uncertain.
After hours of waiting, tensions rise outside these immigration offices in Tapachula in the south of Mexico. They've come in their hundreds from the border with Guatemala, in a hurry to cross the border into the US before Friday.
We need to go as fast as possible.
I heard on the news that they were going to close the border and that we had to get through before May 12th.
Many are misinformed and think they'll no longer be able to enter the US after Thursday. But what Title 42's expiration actually means is the end of a policy that allowed authorities to quickly turn away migrants at the border. So while some fear that applying for asylum may become more difficult, that's not what's worrying US authorities. They're bracing for a surge in illegal migration, which could exacerbate an already challenging humanitarian crisis. In places like San Diego in California, border staff are already out of their depth. Hundreds of migrants have been waiting here for days, stuck between two checkpoints. To help border police, the Biden administration has planned to deploy an additional 1,500 active duty troops to assist the National Guard. Texas's governor has also taken matters into his own hands and announced the deployment of a new unit.
They will be deployed to hot spots along the border to intercept, to repel, and to turn back migrants who are trying to enter Texas illegally.
Homeland Security says migrant crossings could reach up to 10,000 per day once Title 42 is lifted.
Immigrants in the western U.S. state of Colorado have a unique place to go when they are not feeling well, a healthcare clinic that serves newcomers from many countries.
Ellie Titarenko knows the challenges of adjusting to life in the United States. She came to America from Ukraine in 1999. Mindful of the healthcare obstacles many immigrants face, including language and insurance, the nurse practitioner decided to open her own clinic in suburban Denver in 2021.
We were learning how to do accreditation, learning how to do marketing, learning how to work with insurance companies, learning how to run the business, learning about HR. We started with probably 2 people, and the very first patients were my office manager's children.
2 years later, in 2023, the clinic had grown to more than 4,000 patients, including Kelly Caldwell, whose parent is an immigrant, and her daughter Kalani.
I'm not just a patient, I'm a person. And so that's what I enjoy most about coming here to the clinic. They were always open for us, even if it was just a sore throat. When we called, you can get an appointment.
Dr. Ellie's nice to me because she treats people nice.
The clinic has staff members from Ukraine, Mexico, and Iran, and its patients hail from all over the world.
We take a huge pride in saying that we see patients from 40 plus different countries here. Every employee who comes from different countries brings part of their culture to us.
Patient Ania Boglino came to Colorado from Poland.
They don't just do what the book says. They follow their heart, and you can feel it in the treatments. They listen. It's not only about help with your physical body, but also your mental health.
Sarah Barahman moved to Denver from Tehran. She was a patient first, then started working at the clinic while studying physical therapy prerequisites at the local university.
Patients are people here. They're not numbers. One of the first things I noticed is our wall that has portraits of people from all over the world.
Titarenko says the clinic's main rule is to never refuse to help.
We will normally see them no matter their insurance status. If they're able to pay, we will accept their payment for the services. If they're not able to pay, we're happy to see them just to help them out.
She says it is important to let immigrants know these first challenges do not go on forever.
These are the difficult beginnings, and it's part of it. You live through it, it's just going to make you stronger.
Titarenko says she is opening a second clinic to better serve the growing immigrant community here.
10 years ago, Native American photographer Matika Wilbur embarked on a road trip with an ambitious goal to document all 562 federally recognized indigenous tribes. Her multi-year work culminated in a new book aiming to change the way people see Native Americans. She launched her book tour in her home state of Washington.
Drums, dance, a young girl fully taking part in signing her mom's books. It was anything but a common new book launch at Elliott Bay Book Company store in Seattle. For Matika Wilbur, a photographer of Swinomish and Tulalip tribes background, it was an emotional milestone, celebrating 10 years of documenting hundreds of indigenous tribes to more accurately portray Native people in North America.
I don't know how to describe how overwhelming that feels to get to see a need in community and then participate in fulfilling that need. And it feels like a great responsibility and a great joy and an honor and a privilege.
It all began with an attempt to find relevant visual material regarding indigenous tribes for her students.
In 2012, I was a teacher at the tribal school in Margaret in Tulalip. And while I was teaching, the elders in my community, they came to me and they said, Matika, will you put together a curriculum that represents our people? And I found a lot of books written about Native by white people.
Her ambitious idea to document all 562 federally recognized tribes became a road trip in an RV, funded through donations.
The most profound thing that happened is I fell in love with my people so intimately and found a deep and profound appreciation for our traditional culture and our contemporary culture.
Wilbur says she felt it was crucial to let each of the 1,200 people she met choose the way they wanted to be portrayed and approve of their stories. The hardest part was to decide what to leave out of the book.
Oh, I photographed several people in each tribe, and then the editing process was, yes, very painful. We certainly made decisions based off of, not too much overlapping information and not too many overlapping tribes, and some tribes have more representation, and I also just really approached it very loosely and spiritually. I just allowed it to develop as it did.
The number of federally recognized tribes has since grown to 574, and the book features state-recognized tribes as well as urban natives. Nahan, a native dance group leader, is one of those featured in the book.
It's real exciting. There was no opportunity for us to read books written by our own people. So a lot of it was just held by story. So that was always important to sit around the campfire and talk story and hear that wisdom. And, it's like we have to create our own realities and our own dimensions through our stories.
As she embarks on a nationwide book tour, Wilbur hopes her book will help eliminate outdated stereotypes and inspire other Native artists to lead the change.
As access to clean drinking water becomes increasingly difficult in many parts of the world, one company is using an innovative technology to help address this problem for undeserved communities in the United States.
Safe drinking water is a vital resource that is out of reach for 1 of 3 people worldwide, according to the World Health Organization. That includes more than 2 million Americans living without running water, something the nonprofit firm Dig Deep is working to help solve.
Native American families are 19 times more likely than white families to not have running water, and Black and Latino households are twice as likely.
The Navajo Nation is the country's largest Native American reservation, stretching across the western states of Utah, Arizona, and New Mexico. 40% of the population here has no running water, meaning people must often travel up to 100 kilometers into town and back to get it. To help address this water shortfall, the company Source Global has installed hydro panels to collect vapor from the air and create clean drinking water for 500 homes.
When you see a Source hydro panel, it looks a little bit like a normal solar module, except for just a little thicker. And what it's doing is taking in sunlight and air to make perfect drinking water. If you and I were to take one out of a box and set it up on the ground in 15 minutes, half an hour later we get a glass of water.
Every hydro panel is effectively an independent water supply. That's a life-changing development on the Navajo Nation, especially for older community members.
Some of them said that, I never thought in my lifetime that I would have drinking water pumped into my house. It's a blessing for me to see this.
With climate change and aging infrastructure contributing to population pressures on water supplies, Wechter says what's needed is comprehensive, proactive outreach to every community without safe drinking water.
Lionel Messi has not signed or agreed a deal to play in Saudi Arabia next season. The Argentine's father said after reports on Tuesday linked the Paris Saint-Germain forward with a move to the Middle East.
Lionel Messi, the man many consider to be the greatest footballer of all time, will be plying his trade in Saudi Arabia next season, according to some sources, with a bumper contract all but signed. It will bring down the curtain on 2 seasons in Paris, which, barring disaster, will see Messi add 2 league titles to his extensive medal collection. But club football's biggest prize, the Champions League, has eluded PSG and Messi during his time in the French capital. For some, that makes his spell at Paris Saint-Germain a failure.
The moral is this: even the greatest of champions in football only think about money. Unfortunately, it's like that. In addition, if Paris had won the Champions League, it would have done much for his legacy. He could really have gone down in history. Instead, he didn't take his chance, and then he left.
While others are sad to see him go, most agree that the time is right for club and player to part ways.
He brought a lot to Paris Saint-Germain, but it's not necessarily a great loss, because today I think we should focus more on youth. It's true, I think Messi has done his time. He's going to get paid a lot of money in Saudi. I think for the sake of Paris Saint-Germain, we should part ways.
Just 6 months ago, Messi was lifting football's biggest prize, but last week was suspended by his club after taking an unauthorised trip to Saudi Arabia. It's an acrimonious end to Lionel Messi's time as a PSG player.
All right, 31 minutes after 7. That is the end of our international news. We go for a net break. When we return, Lungelele speaks to Nomathemba Gininza. She's the Sexual Reproductive Health Officer under the Ministry of Health.
Pay your TV license quickly and easily with MTN Momo. Simply dial *007 *3 hash and select option 8 for TV license. Enter your national ID number as your reference and the amount you wish to pay. Then enter your PIN to confirm your payment. Once your payment has been made, you'll receive a confirmation SMS of your payment. If you're a first-time payer, you get another SMS for your TV license. So legalize your entertainment from the comfort of your home. Pay your TV license the easy and convenient way with MTN Momo.
Everywhere you go, MTN.
Right, welcome back. Sikusele nawe losanda kusivulela on the show today. Namhla sikhuluma Donati Ndzaba tetempilo njengoba kungilesithathu nje esivutele ukuthi isidaba esikhulumisana neli-officer lisuka eTeko letempilo Nomathemba Gininza was a sexual reproductive health officer in the Ministry of Health. Sikhuluma nje kabanti ngama-female health issues. Kanti-ke ngokusho kwenhlangano kamhlaba yetempilo i-World Health Organization, ama-top 10 female health issues afaka ekhathi isifo samdlavuza, i-cancer, HIV and AIDS, reproductive health bogcunsula, STIs, maternal health, violence against women, mental health kanye naletinye tifo. Sitabe sikhulumisana naye nje lapha mathemba Kiniza kuva kabantu ngalezi zinkinga letikhungithe bona bomake lapha ekhaya Eswatini. Inhlangano ke WHO isebenzisana ngekuthi khandla kucinisa health systems emaveni emhlaba ngekuwasekela ngetimali phindze futhi nake ngiwaniketa nje ti-70 tempilo letibocwephesha kanti ke ngekusho kwembiko nje we-UNFPA wamnyaka wa 2014 lapha ekhaya Eswatini HIV and AIDS kwakungele bayihambe embili etindzabeni lokungele bahambe embili kubulala abantu lapha ekhaya Eswatini kanti ke with an estimation of 26% among the population aged 15 to 49 years. Itateka abantu ke naye nomathemba Kiniza laswa connectika sekuvusele simakho ukuthi ube nasi nomhla ekseni tinombolo letivetwa ngo-UNFPA inhlangano yakamhlaba ngomnyaka wa 2014 kube nje kuva simo ukuthi ngabe simo sesinjani nyalo lapha ekhaya Eswatini nasibuka nje the leading cause of death esifo lesihamba embili kubulala bona bomake ingabe vele mhlawumbe kusengiyo HIV simo sekanjani nje lapha eSwatini.
Angibonge ngivusele umbukeli ekhaya ngibonge naleli thuba ngilitholako sengichaze kahle kuliciniso bomake ekhaya Eswatini bayashona bashone sibanakekela lendzaba yeligciwane kodwa ke litiko letempilo nahulumende wakangwane usisitile wasibambisa kakhulu njengoba usho nje umsakade ukuthi kusukela 2024 bekuhamba embili nyalo sitibonile tinombolo tethu tichinja sekunaletinye tifo letisesicongweni lo HIV so yabuya uba number 3 kanye naleti telicansi tifo ekubulaleni make lesesihamba embili indzaba yeBP kuchinjana nekopha kwamake nakabeleka kusho ukuthi naku number 1 iBP iba number 2 kopha kwesinye isikhathi ukhanze ethi number 1 ngilokuthi make uwopha kakhulu sekabelekile kubuye ke le BP ibe number 2 bese ke sodlalela kulo number 3 lo HIV naletifo telicansi kona kusibulalele kakhulu kumbe ngangena nakulendzaba ukuthi simephi nje ngaleti nombolo tekushona kwabomake even lakangwane bomake nyalo lucwaningo lositshela ukuthi sinabomake labangaba ngu452 nasibabuka ngabomake laba ngu100,000 452 over 100,000 wabomake labashiya kona sibala nasikubuka ke sibuyela emuva sibuka ukuthi kuhamba njani siyabuka ke ukuthi silitiko siyazama kodwa kusashoda kuseneligalelo lelidingekako ngoba nawubuka leti nombolo lolitshinjo luncane lesingeke sasho ukuthi kulitshinjo lolutheni ngoba nalesive siyakhula phindze nekugula kuyanza so sidlalela nje ekuthenini lo mehluko omncane kakhulu tifo ke telicansi ke dinengi letiphathelana nabo make ikakhulukazi sithi kunanathi tifo lokuba nema discharges ema vaginal discharges lakabaphatha kobomake nabo anemthelela ekuthenini umntwana nakade ethwele ukhanze ukuthi sekunenkinga kungendeka anaye umntwana kulamalanga nje sinenkinga kakhulu yekushonelwa abamphana nasebathi balungele ukuthi batobelekwa noma nabathanza kubelekwa emalangeni lang 7 okhanze ukuthi bayasishiya abamphana umthelela wakhona ke kubanga letifo telicansi lama vaginal discharges kwesinye isikhathi siye sithi ma ulcers kuba netilonjana njenganaba bogcunsula bo syphilis lesibakhulumisako labaphinze babe nemthelela emehlweni emphana sekabelekiwe ukhanze ukuthi sotaba nenkinga yemehlo kodwa ke litiko liyasisita ngemithi yokuthi make lotholakele nabeta siye sithi abasheshe bete emtholampilo sitokhona lokhu bacilonga HIV tifo telicansi sitovikela ukuthi bathelele bamphana sivikele nalokushona kwabo sebabeleka nekushona kwebamba bethu so kuyasisita kakhulu sibambisene nelitiko kuloko kungaba nje ukukhuthatha esiveni ukuthi asisheshe side emtholampilo ngalesikhathi sekabona lokho ukuthi nyalo ngifuna kudetfala emtholampilo akhulume nebasemtholampilo lolo seceleni kwasekhaya akudingeki uzugibele ibhasi uyekhashana uthola umhlengikade nje uyamkhulumisa ngifuna kudetfala etinyangeni etintathu etinyangeni leti-4 letitako nicale ke nicilongane ke HIV wakho bogcunsula sihlole nalomdlavuza kubomake nje bonke ngingabali labadethwele uhamba embili mdlavuza wemlomo wesibeletho kubulala bomake. So sithi asikuhlole ke uthi utethwala ube wathi uhlobile etingulweni eguleni konke kude lokungakuthi kabeda kutethwala kwakho. Bese ke sesihlola konke ke siya kwelapha sesiyasho ukuthi cha songatethwala umtimba wakho ulungele. Phindze ucale upopole sikhathi sisavuma kokuthi usitakale. Dinengi letifo lesingadibala kumbe sengibona nalesikhathi nangabe ungalaphi ke isifo telicansi kuba nemthelela lomubi empilweni yakho yamake. Labanye ababatholi bambana kuyende kukhanze sibone isifo selicansi ekukhuleni kwakho kumbe usengaplani kuba nemphana. Ukhanze ukuthi sekutakuvimbela ke loyo musa wethu ube nemphana nawe umkhulisi. Awusakhona kumthola so yayaluka bodokotela uyafuna lapha nalapha kwendekeni uke waba nesifo selicansi sangalapheki. Nalaba bomdlavuza wemabele wemlomo wesibeletho ikakhulu lesifo selicansi siyangenelela. Nangabe ube ngumuntu loba naso wangasilaphi sesiba nemthelela ukuthi ugcine sonako labo mdlavuza wemlomo wesibeletho. Ngoba kunaleli gciwane lelihambelana kwesiye sithi HPV virus ledala lokuthi ube nalo mdlavuza wemlomo wesibeletho. Na ungamkhoni ke ukuthi utivikele siye sithi asisebenzise icondom kopha kulomlomo wesibeletho ayizivikeli lokuyapi ngoba icondom yona le HPV virus uyithatha ngekuthinzana nje kwaletinyama. Kodwa siye sithi kungcono le kheshengana nje ukuthi uvikele lokuncane kunekwe ukuthi ungadivikeli sanhlobo. Siye sikhuthade ukuthi liyabomake ngoba yona icishe bese ithi kuvala indzawana la ngembili kithi thine bomake yenda ukuthi lokuhlangana kwaletinyama kona kuba khona kodwa kungabi kangako. Siye bese siyayikhuthada ke kulolo hlangothi ukuthi asisebenzise kakhulu sikhone kusitakana. So kumcoka kakhulu ke ukuthi bomake bathi hlole sithi hlola ngani kunalo pap smear lohle abanetinkinga. Ngeke ukuthi kumba khambi kahle kulamalanga nje ema laboratory asesimisile kancane
kule nje ngesikuhlaba elwimi singakafiki nje mhlambe ke pap smear ngifuna sikhulume nje naye ama STIs ngoba kubuka lokho ukuthi leti inhlobonhlobo nje tema STIs bomake laba exposed kito. I think uthinzile nenzaba ukuthi bese abasakhona kuba nebantfana ngekhamba kwesikhathi. Kuma nje ngicela usichazele leti inhlobonhlobo nje laba exposed kito nokuthi usichazele ukuthi kwendekani la ngekhathi emtimbeni kuze bathi khanje sebangasakhoni kuba kutfola abantwana.
Ngiyabonga umsakati jothi lokwendekako la ngekhathi kunawuthola le STI like ngishido ngathi kunaleti sidibala ngema group ngoba sikulapha ngema group kangwane kuze sistokhona ukuthi noma ngaba angaboni yona mbamba vele ukhona kusitakala. Bengibalethi kunalama vaginal discharges kuyi group uthide yaletifo telicansi kubomake kuphinze kube nalama ulcers ukhanze ukuthi kunetilonjana njenganangisifilisi ukhanze ukuthi la ntombini kunetilonza letikhona kodwa nase sekahambe kakhulu akudle kakhulu ukhanze uyaphumela letilonza nasemtimbeni le manye ama parts emtimba bese ke sekuba nanakulesithi kuma warts bathi cauliflower labanye lokusimilako nako la ngembili kithi sibomake nabo babe kuyabamila but ngoba namhla sikhulumisa bomake kumile nako kakhulu ke lokho kudalwa ngulo HPV lophinze adale lo cancer. So nako kungcenye yakhona bese ke sekuba kuhambelana nayo ukuthi kunalo lokunye lokhanze ukuthi kuyamila nje kuyaphumba ama growths kuyahambisana nalo kwemawazi lesiba nako ngibomake. So nakufika ke le emtimbeni wakho ngoba phela kuyi virus njengalabo HIV lesibakhulumisako kufike kulimade le system yethu le reproductive system yethu kuyilimata ngendlela yokuthi bese awusakhoni lokuba nalomphana ngendlela lefanele ngoba emasotsha akasakhona ukulwa naleli gciwane nale virus lela ku. So khanze sekufika lesikhathi sekuthi sengifuna umphana namuhla angisakhoni sengibathi ngiyazama akusahambi kahle le health yami even ne menstruation yami lomnye uyamensa amense kahle but sekukhona lo lokonakele le kulama parts akhe ngekhathi ngalendzaba yaleli gciwane bese ke khona ukumthola umntwana lo. Abanye ke baye bathi kuye bese kuba nekublockeka kwalama tubes ethu lahambisa naleli cansi. Akasakhoni ke vele ukuthola umntwana. So basathi uyazama baze basho labanye bathi bawuba blow ema-tubes bodokotela. So lo bazamela kona ukuthi akamtholi. Kanti kunanayi history kumbe lesingayithola ukuthi ngeke ngaba nesifo selicansi. Kumcoka kakhulu ukuthi na uya emtholampilo nasikubuda asibudi ngoba sithanza tindzaba kumbe kunjani ukuthi ngabe yini lokunye loke waba nako tifo telicansi uke waba nato yini ekukhuleni kwakho. Akusiko ngoba sifuna kuva ukuthi wena ugijime kangakanani. Sifuna lokubona ukuthi sisitana kanjani, sihamba muphi umgamo ukuze ukuthi sikhone kusitana nawe. Bese ke sesiyakhona ukusita ngekuhamba kwesikhathi. Kutawuthatha isikhathi kona kumbe. Ukuthi uthola ngoba labanye ukhanze ukuthi baba nayo ukhanze ukuthi so wahlala khala ngebuhlungu esiniyeni nangemuva kweliqolo. Siye sithi kunana tifo tabo pelvic inflammatory diseases letiba khona nato ukhanze sedinga umthelela lomubi wekuthena ukalashelwa tifo telicansi. So kahle kahle maningi lama consequences kumbe letingcinamba letivelako na ungade laphi ungumake useyathola letinkinga nje uthola tifo telicansi nako konke.
Okay, mhlawumbe sesingaya nje kule ndzaba ye-pap smear. Ngiyahloko ukuthi labaningi vele mhlawumbe kunezinkulumo letiningi nje ukuthi kuyini kona lokho kwentiwa njani ama-benefits ayo yini. Labanye mhlawumbe bakhuluma timvu letingasilo liciniso ngoba nje kusiniketa sithombise ukuthi vele le-pap smear yenziwa kangakhi iminyaka iyini nekuthi ingabe isisita kangakanani thina sibomake.
Ngiyabonga. I-pap smear iyasisita sisuke sihlola lo mlomo wesibeletho lokuthi ngabe uphile kangakanani nasibuka kulabo mdlavuza. So nasiukuhlola ke kukhona umfinyelana lesiwuthatha ko siyamvula makuyalala empetheni simvule kunale sipopolo sethu lesinsinjana lesenda ukuthi kuvuleke ngoba phela lesitho sethu sifihlakele sisekhathi. Kufanele uvule utokhona kubuka lapha kube nemfinyelana lesiwuthathako ke kulomlomo wesibeletho. Bese ke sesiyawufaka ke ebhodleleni sekuya elaboratory bayohlola ukuthi kungabe simo kumdlavuza umenjani ungumake. Kepha ke ngale tincabekelwane ukuthi kuhambe kubide kakhulu etindlekweni livela kangwani la seseliyahamba lemaveni libuya nalokunye lokunconywana lokumanani laphansi la khona sigcobisa lo mlomo wesibeletho wamake nakhona sisuke siwuvule ngekufanana njenganawe i-pap smear. Siyawugcobisa sime sikhashana bese kuba netimpawu thite lesitibonako letisho ukuthi la kunesendvulela mdlavuza usuke usengabe namdlavuza usuke ungaguli but kunaletimpawu letisho ukuthi kunesandvulela mdlavuza. So make kuyadzingeka ukuthi simzame kumlaphela ukuthi sivikela ukuthi angafiki kulesigaba samdlavuza. Ingakho sitomemeta sithi make loke waya ecansini walala akasukume phansi ayohlola ngoba naletimpawu tisuke tingekho tithatha isikhathi for lo mdlavuza wemlomo wesibeletho ukuthi uze uve ukuthi ngiyagula kuyakuthatha about 10 15 20 years kushiyane ngemtimba wemuntu. Ngakho ngalokuthi sikuthola kahle lapha ecansini sithi nawuke waya nje ecansini buya sikuhlole ungakeva lutho ukhanze ukuthi siyababamba kusengacala letimpawu lobuhlungu nako konke ngoba yena siye sithi uyi-silence killer ngekwakhona. So bese kuyasisita ke manje sisebenzisa lokwekugcobisa kakhulu lokhu kwa-pap smear sesikusebenzisela naba labangasayi emfuleni ngoba kulokugcobisa kude longakubona ngoba siye sithi umlomo wesibeletho nangitalwa ngikhula une-shape lo yendako ngifike esigabeni sekuthi ngisengatali kuba ngazi ukuthi ucudula umlomo nje lo mlomo wesibeletho kanti nasengicedzile kuyesikhathini ubese ukhwicela ngekhathi kube like uthi so awusakhoni ke ngoba kufanele sigcobise lo mlomo wesibeletho so usithele ubhacile awusakhoni ke ukugcobisa sekufanele vele sithathe lo mfinyela ngoba leli brush lethu lenda kwasangathi lingena kancane bese ke letinye imphiko tikhala ngaphandle diyawuthatha lo mfinyela sesiyohlola ke. So ingakho lokuhlola kwethu kutawuhlukana kubo bonke ukuthi lona usaya emfuleni lona akasayi.
Okay. So la nyendzaba nje lemcoka make ngenza indzaba nayi kunabo make lokhanze ukuthi nabasesikhatsini baba nema period pains lamatima kabhlungu bakhala nje ngama pains bese labanye ke sebathi khanze sebenta labo steaming vaginal steaming imvo lesematheni kulamalanga bathi ke labanye kuyabasita ukuthi bastima ngama herbs lathite kude kubato unciphisa lobhlungu la kulesinye ingabe vele mhlambe kuyasebenza imvelo lokho kuyasida imvelo noma mhlambe kuyasilimata even further kuliciniso kangana nokuthi kunema benefits akho
Ngingathini indzaba ye vaginal steaming labanye bathi it's yawning of some sort so bayakusebenzisa boma ke kunenge letinfo lesisebenzisako ukhanze ukuthi litiko letempilo umhlaba wonke nje naseveni alika kuphasisi ngoba nakukhona kulashwa indlela yekulapha thite lekhona kuba nelicwaningo lwesilendawo lelwentiwa litiko letempilo yende licwaningo sifike esigabeni sekuthi cha lokhu ku safe sesingakusebenzisa kuloko ekustima kuma practices la khona yebo sikhona study leka senda WHO nga 2012 emaveni lang 4 lefake ekhathi balingani bomakhelwane bethu South Africa na Mozambique ngibale nje la Southern Africa sathi ke bayakwenda but ke uphindze asho ke na WHO ukuthi bathi kusete le evidence lenele ukuthi singathi abakwenda bona bayasho ukuthi kuyabasita kakhulu na unalama period pains kumbuto yesikhathini uhleti lapha kuleli bhodo kuyakusita ngoba bathi bayakuthatha bakubeke kuleli bhodo le toilet lamandi abo bafake lama herbs bese bayahlala bathi imbonya kumbe ngelithawula noma ngengubo bese ke lesimoko nawo uvale ukuthi bathi bakwendelani bathi lesimoko kufanele sihambe siyele ku uterus ekhathi kwendele ukuthi ku clean le uterus ku clean konke nale vagina but ke nase sibuka mbamba sibuka iscience ngesikwakhona intombi yethu the vagina kunalama flora la khona njengekwendalo kuhambe kube netikhathi la kungazuthi vele kungcola ngcolile kube nesikhathi la ihlobe khona kuyatendela kona kuyatibalansisa kona ukuthi nyalo kufanele kume kanje nyalo kufanele kanje so nase ngistima sengidisturb that vaginal that normal flora yale vagina yami so ungakhanza sithi ingulo thithe setiyendeka nalokuthi lenyama ithambe kakhulu njengalamlonyeni sekungena lesimoko lesishisako kwendekani sekuba naloku disturb vele lenyama na yami lehloniphekile lekayakhila umdali ukuthi ayihlale ikuleso simo sengidisturbile nekugula luthite lokunye sekungena melula sengikuvulele sesikubuka nje ngekwesayensi but vele nelitiko lisho njalo lithi sisede kahle medical evidence lesingasho nje simekiyo nganyawo lunye ukuthi asikusebenzisi kodwa ke bamfu ukutshela ukuthi mina ngikwendile kwangisita labanye nje bathi nangabe eva ngathi une stress uyahlala ibhodweni lakhe emva kwaloko ulala utawuphaphama ekseni so kunengi labathi kubasita khona noma babelekile labanye bathi nawuthanza kubeleka uyakusebenzisa kukuside kodwa ngeke sisho silitiko ukuthi bamfu abakusebenzisi ngalopho ngodi lesibukako until kube nale evidence lekahle
kahle no iyavakala ngelenye indzaba nje lebalekile ngaloku sivule sesawuphelelwa isikhathi make nomathemba indzaba yema unintended pregnancies ngifuna singene like 10 ekusetshenzisweni kwama contraceptives ukuthi ngabe vele mhlawumbe lizinga lingana nje labo make labawatiko nalama contraceptives labawasebenzisa ngoba labanye ukhanze ukuthi bakhala ngokuthi beva mahemhem lathite ukuthi hayi emaluphu anjani njani awayifaki nawusengakabeleka awayifaki uma ususemncane amaphilisi endana njani njani imijovo yakho iphalisana ngabe vele mhlambe lamaqiniso vele athini ngawo onke lama contraceptives
ngibonge msakati lengingakusho ngetinfo tekuhlela ukuthi tinfo tekuhlela lesinato eveni tonke tiphephile tiyasebenta ngendlela lefanele konke nje kusuka ephilisini lonke ngekushiyana kwawo ngoba konke kunetinhlobonhlobo kulihambile lonke lelicwaningo lelithi akufike ekuthenini sekungasetshenziswa ngumuntu kwendiwa litiko letemhlaba so kuphephile yebo ke singasho ukuthi kumbe lokufaka leluphu kunangumphane ethu lomncane losazama ukuthi virginity yakho nakekela uyayibamba angeke simfake but ke vele nasekathi sofuna kulala kusho ukuthi soyibreakile le virginity yakhe lokuhle ngayo le loop ukuthi ikuvikela isikhathi lesithi iloop lesinayo nje ekhaya ikuvikela 10 weminyaka yebo ikhona lesengasebenzi kakhulu lena 5 weminyaka but nje lesihambisa embili kuba ngilena ya 10 weminyaka seyiyabuya ke lo 5 ukuthi nayiphelile le ya 10 ngoba sesinayo lo 5 nayo singamsida kuye ngalokuthi wena ufuna kulamisa nini ungumake kube khona naloko ema implant bamphana bangakusebenzisa nayo iyouth lotiva ukuthi mine vele ngiyafuna kulala but umfana ngisengamfuni ngisengabi ready for umphana kuphephile konke ngoba letintswayi leti la kuletinfo tekuhlela ngiletethu tetisenda siye esikhatsini kusetshenziswa letintswayi letimbili shothi nje bayasingetela tona kubalansiswe tona nangabe ngisebenzisa kunale estrogen lokunye kuna progesterone so siyathi ukuthi kunalokuchinja la mtimbeni ukuthi kuhle ukukhula iprogesterone kuhle ukukhula iestrogen so kusebenza nga same way nje leyendekako kithi labanye ke bakhala ngokuthi umjovo bavala abangayi esikhatsini ingadi yami ibhekephi lo mjovo usebenza ngekuthi uvale le ovulation lokuvuthwa kwaleli canza lethu ngoba sinetilulu sipomake kuletilulu tethu kubade leli canza leli bese seliyavuthwa liyaphuma liyokwakha lokuthi kube nalengadi nale mbethe shothi le endometrium kule uterus yakho ayikhuli kupreparation ukuthi ngoba nyalo sekutaba neovulation kungendeka kube na kuhlangana thite bese sekwakhe kumfana ayikhuli so ngaleso sikhathi ngakhulu kude lengadi letawuphuma ngoba kusuke kwakheke kuhlanganiseke tonke loto tinto leto so kude la ifihleka khona kusuke nje kungakendekile process letawundathi ugcine uye emfuleni abakhululeke kulolu hlangothi.
Okay. No, ngiyavakala kepha ke sethemba ukuthi mhlawumbe labanemibuto leminingi banganivakashela emtholampilo mayekinisa bathi ubuda lokho labafise ukubuda sethemba ukuthi mhlawumbe next week evini letako sitakhulumisa dona tindzaba dabo babe labangafuni kuya esibhedlela bayohlola. Sibahlete make sesithabe sithaphetha hlelo.
Right, welcome back. 2 minutes before 8. It was an informative show, Lulu. I've learned a lot about my female reproductive system. Not that interest lengakana nguyo but nje ngiyathanza kwathi idingo Lulu. Ngabe wena ufunze kakhulu
ngibokuthanza naloku yesibhedlela sifisa because bayasho labetimpilo ukuthi anisithanza lesibhedlela but anyway we're hoping to speak to sexual reproductive health next week sesama sisabe sikhuluma dona tindzaba tebamfo besilisa I think sabe sikhuluma kabanti nge-prostate cancer sifisa ngalokuthanda funi lokuyoyicheckela ngalozivele ayigo awkward
prostate cancer, penile cancer and other HPV cancers nje la khona. Yeah, next week for sure.
All right, thanks so much for joining us today. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a lovely day.